furniture that had once belonged to his parents stood neatly around him, and it shone under the years of being rubbed by Melly with daily helpings of wax and elbow grease, the room smelling of lavender polish during the day and pipe smoke at night. The table at which he sat, scrubbed with vim, was now depositing a thin film of white powder on the sleeves of his jacket, and a faint aroma of bleach competed with steak and heel, tickling his nostrils. It was at moments like this that he pondered on the fact that he had almost sold the house, the life, the routine that made him as happy as a man who had lost his family could expect to be. He had to constantly chase up Melly to clean behind the toilet doors and to cease flirting with the coalman, but he couldn't fault her delicious pies. He had pierced the pastry with his fork to allow the steam to rise, and was just about to dive in when a loud knock on the door burst his bubble of anticipation. More often than not, according to their sailing rota and the tide table, which was as accurate as it could be, the sea and stevedores allowing, his paying guests rebooked their next stay as they checked out. He grunted with irritation, reluctant to leave the buttery short-crust pastry, hot and melting, and the wafting smell of rich gravy under his nose. "Who the hell is it?" he called. His paying guests each had a key, so this must be someone looking for a room. No one knocked on his door for any other reason, unless it was the postman, the milkman, or Biddy Kennedy on her way home from work, and it was too late for any of them. The wind rattled at the window panes with such ferocity it felt as though the room itself shook. This was not the weather or the night to be disturbing the routine of Malcolm Coffey, a stickler for everything being done by the book. The only thing he looked forward to, or dreamt about during the day, was his supper, and he often wondered, as he ate, what kind of pie his late wife would have turned out. He had served throughout the war, only to return home to find that he had lost his wife, with his newly delivered son in her arms, as a result of the bomb that had landed on the maternity hospital during the May Blitz 9 months after his leave. He also found himself an orphan, too, both his parents having lost their lives by a bomb that hit close to the Dockers steps only 2 days later. The regimental major had withheld the second news from the dispatches to his posting for over a week, to give him time to absorb the shock of the first. Malcolm had been serving in North Africa at the time, and all leave was denied. Only his parents had been afforded a funeral, due to their bodies being identifiable. A funeral that he had not been able to attend, but Biddy Kennedy had. His wife and son lay in a concrete grave, on what was once the delivery suite of the maternity hospital, both beyond identification and removal. Today, the hospital rebuilt, life came forth over death. "Biddy, is that you?" Malcolm called, not expecting a reply, reluctant to rise and leave his pie. "Malcolm, I promised your mam I would keep an eye on you," Biddy would say when she called in for a cup of tea. Biddy worked as a housekeeper at the St Angelus Hospital, a plum job in the School of Nursing, working for Sister Emily Horton, and one of the pleasures in Malcolm's life was to hear all about the antics of the probationer nurses and how they ran Biddy around in circles. Over 2,000 bombs had been dropped the week his family died. Nearly 7,000 homes had been completely destroyed. Fire had ripped through the dock's side streets. "Think of me as your mam, if you ever need one. I'm here. You aren't alone, Malcolm," Biddy would say. Malcolm had been at school with her own children, and not one of them had remained in Liverpool or even in contact with Biddy. He enjoyed her visits. She had transferred from being his mother's friend to his, and more than that, much more. Melly had her own opinions about Biddy. "That woman mourns her kids," she would say. "Not one of the buggers bothers to write to her. Still working her socks off, and all those kids. Not one of them tips up a penny. A crying shame it is. You want to watch out. She might have her eye on this place if anything happens to you." Malcolm would snort with derision. "Biddy is looking for an easier life, not to take on more."